Welcome to the Along the Way podcast, your place to become an equipped and encouraged parent so you can experience God's absolute best for your family.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Along the Way podcast. This is part 2 of our conversation with Aprile Sweers. So if you missed part 1, go back and listen to that. But today in part 2, we're really talking about how, when we're parenting, there's a lot more than what we see on the surface. So check out this conversation with Aprile Sweers.
Because discipleship is my jam. Like, that's what I do. I teach the Bible. I help disciple primarily women. And it's made me realize how much in this machine of church stuff that we do, we can dehumanize discipleship. Right? So we have our strategies and we have our methods. And if you read the Bible every day and you pray and you do all these spiritual disciplines and you check all these boxes, this is the kind of person you're going to become. And what I'm realizing is you never just disciple the spiritual part of a person. You disciple the whole person always. And so their brain chemistry matters. Their traumatic experiences and how that has shaped their brain matters. A lot of things, and as I look back in people's lives that I've discipled that I thought were just recurring sin issues, like, oh my word, can you not get over this? I'm looking back and I'm like, I bet that was a trauma issue. I bet it wasn't this, like, they kept succumbing to temptation. I bet there was a trauma going on, which it literally reshapes your brain and how it works. And so that's where the big gifts have been just dependence, and then realizing that I have got to start humanizing discipleship. I've got to start seeing the whole person. And, there's a story in John 4 that has just been so helpful for me. It's Woman at the Well, right? I taught John last year, and such a familiar passage. So I'm always like, okay, Lord, I don't think I'm going to see anything new here, but I was reading a commentary by a woman named Marianne May Thompson, and she brought to light, the part of the story, Jesus is talking to the woman, and he says, go get your husband. And she says, I don't have a husband. And then he says, that's right, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you're now with is not your husband. And in every sermon I've ever heard, and this could be true, it's not that it's wrong, but in every sermon I've ever heard, it's Jesus is exposing her sin. He's getting to her sin. It's the first thing he's got to do. And Thompson says that it's only when we map on our modern categories onto the text that you would ever make that conclusion, right? So we see immorality, because in our culture, if somebody's been married 5 times,
right,
and they're living with somebody's not their husband, we're like, that's cringy, right? In her culture, women cannot initiate divorce. So if it had been ended marriages, she had been abandoned. There's also a very high mortality rate, so high chance she had been widowed more than once. Also, the fact that she's with a man that's not her husband. I mean, these days you can live as a single woman and thrive. Absolutely not the case in her culture. Right. So what Mary May Thompson talks about is she says, it could be that Jesus is trying to get into her sin. But if you're just taking the text and in its context, there's no further conversation about her sin. In fact, what it seems Jesus is getting at is he wants her to know that he knows her. Mm-hmm. And so we are often taught that what Jesus is trying to get to is her sin. I'm seeing it with fresh eyes now, and I think Jesus, what he is getting at is he sees a woman who has suffered and is currently suffering. And there's, God meeting women at a point of suffering is like a really strong pattern in Scripture for that. But I think that's where the biggest gift that Landon's given us is it's helped me shift from a paradigm of, okay, where's the sin? That's what we got to fix, to realizing God doesn't just care about what we do wrong. He very much cares about the wrong that's been done to us as well.
Absolutely.
How that affects our lives, how it affects our decision-making, how it affects how we see the world, all the things. And he knows us, and he loves us, and he sees us. And Jesus was coming after the whole person that was standing at the well that day. And that is how I want to parent. That is how I want to disciple. And I was not there yet until the Lord blessed us with this beautiful child who every single day, I have to look at the whole person. And I didn't even have a category for bad behavior that isn't sin. I had no category for like, of course, bad behavior is always sin. But my child, that's not the case, right? His brain is doing things that he literally can't help. And because
these aren't volitional, like,
no, we're embodied creatures. So what's going on in our brain comes out in the way we move our bodies, the way what we say, all these things. And now, don't wait, he does some things that are volitional. They're volitional. And we consequence them differently.
Yep.
But that's been a big part of it.
But that's wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Because you're recognizing, hold on, like there are some other factors here that we have to take into account. But if you just do the cookie cutter kind of like, okay, you did this, so it means this. Yeah. And then that's where I think wisdom gets thrown out of the window. Yeah. But, parenting is discipleship. Yeah. So, this whole paradigm shift of discipleship and humanizing all those things, it almost sounds like, well, how did we ever get away from, like, it? It's, of course, discipleship deals with, humans and parenting is we're dealing with whole people, but we're even finding ourselves having to say that because it's so easy to deduce discipleship and then parenting to the transfer of information. Yeah. I need to tell you stuff. I need to teach you something. And that's why I think the modeling aspect of this is still so key. Yeah. It's so key. And remember, Jesus, we're about to celebrate this Christmas, my favorite time of year. It's like, it's the incarnation. Yeah. It is God who's saying, hey, I'm going to embody all of these things so that you can see it, so you can touch it, so that you can experience it on your terms, really. He condescended, right? So it's for our good, it's for our help. And so many times what we have to do for our kids is we have to condescend. We have to come to them where they are, come to their level in order to convey the things that we want to do. So as God's shaping us, our kids are seeing, hold on, mom, dad, man, you're in process. Mm-hmm. You're following this God that you say you trust, this that you say you depend on. Well, they're seeing, wow, mom is depending on God. Mom is trusting. Dad is well. So I just think that if, to your point, the idea of just deducing parenting discipleship to the transfer of content and not that content, if you will, being embodied in compassion, love, coming to your level, then it doesn't make it there.
Right.
So,
well, I really see, to me, two big things that we've talked about so far today, and one being, you talked about this a while ago, April, but and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but so much of parenting is focusing on who we are and not who our kids are. I don't know if I can say this without getting emotional. Last night was my son's birthday party, and we went around the table talking about, our favorite thing about him. Like, I love that you are kind and all this. And of course, he's 5 and he wanted a turn, and he looks at me and he says, my favorite thing about me is that you're my dad. And for me, that meant a lot because when I was his age, my dad was not involved in my life. And I didn't have that to look at. I didn't have that model there. And, my hope as a parent is that if nothing else, even if the discipline isn't working, even if the patterns aren't working, even if the step 1, 2, 3, whatever that is, am I living my life in a way that, from a humble perspective, I hope that my kids want to be like that. So for me, that's one part there that we've talked about. But the other part that I think is huge is that if parenting can all be done from a book, if parenting, honestly, and not to talk down about our podcast here, but if parenting can be fixed by a podcast, then it takes God completely out of the equation.
For sure.
That's right.
And I love the way that you said that. That's the beauty of it, is that there is a need to be dependent on him. There is a need to be reliant on him through parenting, that no matter how much we talk, no matter how many books we read, it can't be fixed by anything but him. And that's just the nature of being in a broken world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm familiar with your background. Some definitely come from, broken family, and mine, same way. I'm just curious, growing up, what was the family makeup for you that influenced even like your parenting, how you thought about?
Very positive. Okay. I have all positive memories. Okay. I think one other thing, because we're all in therapy, my family. Thank you, Landon. It's actually been really good though. But anybody who's been in therapy, you do a lot of looking back, because the way you parent is always in some way related to how you're parented. And with me, I didn't need a lot of parenting. I was very self-motivated. I was self-regulatory. I love rules. I love obeying rules. Give me all the boundaries. I'm very timid. I'm very risk averse. And so that has played out. And my husband is the complete opposite. So yeah, it's been a fun ride. So for sure. But as far as I'm so thankful God was so central in my home, and I have a mother in particular who just demonstrated a very personal, connected, daily relationship with Jesus that was modeled so beautifully. And it wasn't anything spectacular. It was just your simple, just walking with the Lord day by day, reading the Bible, praying, being, loving and serving the Lord. So
So that's what I'm saying. It's like the context you grew up in, now that you're in, it's just kind of like new categories, new everything, not just from church culture, but also just, like this is just was not present in my home, you know? So I think for a lot of us, that muscle, if you will, or that paradigm, some paradigms need more shifting than others, right?
For sure.
And some just get shattered, right?
Right. And the thing about a paradigm is you don't know it's active, usually. It's in the background, running everything you do and everything you think and everything you say. But until you're confronted with a situation that exposes it and that demands a change, like what we are doing is not working, we have to shift. We have to pivot. And then you start to dismantle and rebuild. It's tough.
Yep.
It requires a lot of humility, because you have to admit that your way of doing things wasn't effective.
That's exactly. So
it's the worst.
Right now I'm in, doing some premarital counseling and working with a couple, but I always say you start off the same way. It's just like, you're coming in with an idea of what marriage is supposed to look like, what a husband is, what a wife is. And a lot of that's been built off of what you've seen modeled for. So I'm trying to convince them that even right now, there are some things that are running in the background. It's like your worldview of this, that you've been influenced more than you'll ever know. And my job is to help you tease that out and to see where those things are going to kind of clash a little bit. And I think it happens with our parenting a lot. It's like we bring in these preconceived notions and these ideas, and they need to be, dealt with, sanctified, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So
I love information. So I've always thought I just love to learn. But I've realized that what I've really loved is to go into classroom environments that affirm everything I already think. I want that expert to tell me all the things I already know and just build on it. And what this phase of parenting has required is that, no, I actually have to learn something, right? Not just like all these things I already knew. I want to go to a conference and I want somebody to tell me how great they are. No, I actually need to read books about stuff I have no knowledge of at all. And I have to be open-minded. And yes, the scientist who wrote this is like into evolution. So what do I do with that? Oh, but his research is going to change my child's life, and has. So you keep going back to wisdom, discernment. It's so huge.
Common grace, for that matter.
Common grace, yes. Which, medication, psychiatrists and all the things, that God uses those things in such powerful ways, but it requires so much humility to actually learn. And I told I taught a study on heaven this past, and we were so paradigm shifting, because most of the stuff we've been taught about heaven comes more from Plato than the Bible. And so it was like, I just warned them, like, you're going to actually have to learn. And we don't love to learn. We love to allow our ideas to be put on display and told how great they are, but learning requires breaking down the old and actually applying new information to this. And it's hard work. And I think, again, the gift of having a child that doesn't fit the mold is that you have to. You don't have to, but it ain't gonna work if you don't learn some new strategies.
So I've heard you say gift, joy, even in the midst of, the whole context here is really just challenges, but those things are still being extracted even in just the way that you talk about it. Just talk a little bit about the things that the challenges have teased out and allowed you to enjoy in life, to see with new eyes on something. So for a parent out there who's like, you're using joy, using gift, I feel like I'm under judgment.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
How are you, in the midst of all of that, still seeing God's good hand, his grace in your life? How's that played out?
Yeah, I want to first say something about the judgment. It's such a hard piece, because particularly in a faith community where we value behavior, we value certain types of behavior, as we should, right? The Bible speaks to certain behaviors are all over Scripture, and we're commanded to do certain behaviors. So when you have a child whose neurological challenges manifest in behavior that is not acceptable, when you have a child who cannot sit in a chair and listen to even a 10-minute lesson, who is going to be deeply triggered by, songs and having to do motions and being asked to, all these things, right? The impulse is, particularly in a faith community, because you feel all eyes on you. Let me just tell you, my son sits in church with an iPad. He plays Minecraft the whole service, right? It took me 2 years to be okay with that. It's the only way we can do church. And the reason it took me so long is I thought, I'm the Bible teacher. Like, what are people going to think? If I were to see a kid playing Minecraft in church who's 8, it's not like he's 3. He's 8. Every 8-year-old is pretty much capable of this. I had to let it go. And it was here were my options. Either lean away from faith community altogether, which is what most parents of neuroatypical children do. I've got this square peg, the church is the round hole. I don't know what to do. Or you get used to the eyes and you see it as an opportunity to help the world understand that particularly the church world needs to understand, there's all kinds of kids and they don't all fit the mold. And this child that's been such a gift to you then gets to become a gift to the people around you. But that is very hard. It is very hard. You do not want to be the person with the quote-unquote bad kid. And most people don't understand neuroscience. So you can talk about a prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and blah, blah, blah. And most people are like, what are you talking about? Know? So anyway, I just wanted to speak that. I cannot emphasize enough, lean in, not away. Lean in and see it as an opportunity to educate the people around you who are probably way more accepting and wonderful and willing to learn than you think they are. So that's one thing when you brought that up, I thought I really need to speak to that.
That's great.
You want to stay home. You don't want to bring the kid to church that's going to be disruptive. So as far as Landon being a gift, I think I talk a lot about him in terms of rescue. So I'm in ministry to women. I have a decent online presence, and you guys probably don't follow a lot of Christian personalities on Instagram for women. They tend to be very cute. They tend to be very packaged, very, here's this verse of the day, or here's this da-da-da-da. And honestly, that's kind of the direction I was headed, because it's all I know, it's like, here's these things, and if you apply them to your life, it's just all very cute, And Landon has rescued me from being cute. Landon has rescued me from saying things like, and I would never put it this way, but if you read your Bible more and you pray more and you do all these things, you're going to be great. No, I can't tell anybody that, right? Our life isn't easier at all. We say things like, everything happens for a reason. Well, I mean, I guess you can make a theological case for that, but how is that even helpful? Is that even the category we should be thinking in or presenting? All of those things. And so Landon just brought us down to earth, into reality. And now when I see a mom in Walmart and her kid is freaking out, maybe her kid screams the F word in the middle of the store. Mm-hmm. My first thought isn't, oh my gosh, that kid has never been disciplined a day in his life. My first thought is, oh my goodness, I hope they have a really good therapist. And I I hope he's getting the help. I hope he's been tested and diagnosed. And just in that right there, that alone.
There are other categories, it's.
But me being able to look at that mom and usually now I just tear up. I just want to give her a hug. Whatever led to that, that's hard.
Yeah.
And messy. And man, I get to go home to a husband that's like 100% on board. Have no idea if she goes home to that. Most parents with a neurodivergent child have a lot of struggles, So that's been the biggest rescue. He's rescued me from being too cute. Yeah. And all these cute little things we say and all the cute little verses we spout out there. What's become my favorite thing in the Bible is lament. You want to talk to me about what I'm reading? It's probably lament. It's probably depressing, but oh my goodness, what a beautiful thing that God speaks to that. Mm-hmm. A third of the Psalms are psalmists lamenting hard things in life. That is the God that comes to us in our hard places and in our suffering. Our God sees the whole person, and that's the joy right there. That's the win. That's the gift. That's the rescue. Because ain't nobody out there living a real life need any more church cute. And so let's let these children teach us how to be less cute and how to be more real and honest and authentic and whole person. Yeah.
And that's a great point too, I think, there may be parents listening to this today and they find themselves like, man, I don't really find myself in that difficult of a situation, but I guarantee you that they're surrounded by people who do. And so a reminder to us too, when there is something going on, when there is, the kids screaming in the store, are we showing grace? Are we being willing to be a support system to those who may be going through a challenging season? That's a great reminder.
It's easy to think when you see that, just give me 5 minutes with that kid and we'll straighten this right
100%,
out. Kind of one of those situations. And again, that is a category out there, right? That is a real category. But
if you ever want 5 minutes with my children, I will let you have weeks. No, I'm kidding.
No, but again, it's, we don't take an account, and you made this point with the woman at the well. Mm-hmm. We don't take into account stories.
Yeah.
And we don't know the story. And I think time to at least entertain. There's a story here. Mm-hmm. Arlene is a lot differently. It's a lot different. At least opens up to the idea that, you know what, maybe there's something else going on here. Mm-hmm. And I think that step alone will lead you in a different direction.
It's a really great way to see the world. Mm-hmm. When you're not seeing it as, oh, they're doing the wrong thing and I'm doing the right thing. Like when you start to just see humanity as it is. And how I think you get closer to seeing how God sees us, and it's just a really joyful way to live. Yeah.
Well, April, I just want to say I really admire the work that you've put in, the resources that you sought out, and the amount of time you spent learning and reading and seeking and praying through that. That's really admirable. For the work that you put in for your kids. I'm curious for our listeners who are listening today, what's the best way for them to connect with you, to find you, how to find your podcast and all that?
They can find my podcast by searching for Her God Speaks on any podcast platform. Also hergodspeaks.com. And then I have a pretty big Instagram presence. So at Her God Speaks, they're on Instagram. So,
awesome.
yeah.
And I have to say, just total honest truth, when I was looking at coming down to Bell Shoals, you were actually one of the first things I found out about Bell Shoals because of your presence on Instagram and all that.
And
so
you still came. I love it.
Yeah, but you definitely have a very big reach, and love that. So, I think for our listeners today, for me, pretty much the biggest thing I've gotten from our talk today is really just making sure, as a parent, regardless of what the books may tell me, regardless of the patterns that I may need to set, am I modeling Christ well to my kids? And we've talked about this in previous episodes. Am I modeling the gospel well? And so if you're listening to this today and maybe you're going through a really challenging season, we just want you to know that there is hope. Even if you're not seeing the results, just continue to be like Bruce said, be a faithful parent. Don't worry about being a good parent, worry about being a faithful parent. And we would love to connect with you, man. If there's anything going on right now, you can always text our team. You can text Bell Shoals to 77411. Also, if you go to bellshoals.com, there's parent resources there. We would love to connect with you. We hear from parents sometimes that are going through challenging seasons, and we want to be able to partner alongside with you and help you the best that we can. And so hopefully this podcast is a great resource for you. If you would be so kind as to review and share it. Again, not so that people know about along the way, but so that more people can find the help that they're looking for. And we'll see you next time along the way.